Now, I am an Arkansas girl, and I have the perfect body for Arkansas autumns. I'm serious, no, my hair loves humidity. My skin does not usually burn, and this body does not sink in water. And when I was in college in Arkansas, I would sit out in the autumn and I would enjoy all that my body was built for. So one day I was laying out on the front lawn of my college, enjoying the sun that would not burn me. And I saw a gaggle of college boys gathering right next to me. Most of them freshmen, a few not. It was very obvious that it was pledge week, and these were frat bros. So the frat bros came together huddled, and in hushed voices they said, "Bro." And I listened carefully, because just a few years prior, hazing had become illegal. And I love watching a train wreck, so I wanted to see what was going on, so I tuned in. And the leader took the front. He said, "Bruh, we're gonna have 3 brackets. We're gonna have the general ugly bracket, we're gonna have the bad body bracket, and we're gonna have the butterface bracket." Hey, what's a butterface? Everything about her's good, but her face though. Oh. So anyway, we're gonna have quarterfinals and semifinals and finals and the winner. And if you get a quarterfinals girl, you ask her out, you're gonna get 10 points. You get a semifinals girl, you're gonna get 20 points, finals 30, winner 40 points. If she says yes, you get an extra 10. You need 50 points this week. Now let's start taking the names. And he started taking recommendations for names of girls around campus. Now for the general ugly, I didn't actually hear anyone I recognized, which was nice. And then for the bad body, I heard someone that was in one of my education classes, but I didn't know her very well. And when it came to the butterface category, mine was the first name mentioned. Oh. And I listened as my name was voted up and up and up the list. I was the reigning butterface. And I scampered back to my dorm room before anyone could notice me. And luckily none of my roommates were there, and I looked in the mirror as the panic attack hit. Not because they had called me ugly, but because I had been seen. Up until that point, I had convinced myself that nobody, when they looked at me, could see how sick I was. I had convinced myself that it was only me that noticed that there wasn't enough collagen in my gums for my mouth to accept braces. Up until that point, I had convinced myself that it was only me that had noticed that my skin had gotten progressively paler over the past 5 years, that capillaries actually grow on the outside of my skin instead of in, that half of my face only has half of its mobility. But in that moment, I knew I had been seen by that fraternity. And they saw me as weak. And as an upwardly mobile girl in Arkansas, as someone who had been raised poor, who was at this fancy private college to try and secure a future, I knew that was in danger. And tracing the lines of the veins under my eyes where my skin was slowly separating from my face, I promised myself that I would become untouchable. Now that next week, every one of those boys asked me out. and I pretended not to hear a word they said. I kept walking, and I poured myself into my work. I went to class every day, and I fought to get the best grade that I could. In 4 years, I did 40 theater productions. I worked at the Literacy Council after school. I completed multiple internships. I became the first stage manager of a long-running summer stock there and created whole new systems that overworked the entire company. And that was too much. Eventually, my body collapsed. I started to lose my hearing, I started to lose my eyesight, and in 2015, I had to have an emergency cardiac ablation. Now, I don't know if you know what it's like to have a heart procedure, but it's very exhausting and it carries a heavy toll on the body. And I, as someone who had prided myself in going to work in heels and footing massive ladders and lifting massive lighting instruments into the air, could barely pick up my book bag. And so when I left for my master's program where I was studying storytelling, I realized that I desperately needed a way to regain my strength. And I also needed some part of my life that had nothing to do with school, that had nothing to do with being untouchable. And so I enrolled in classes at a local circus school. And when I first walked into that gymnasium, I was blown back, not just by the smell of sweaty feet, but also what I saw all around. There were people who looked like me, people who bent too far, people who could isolate any part of their body and use it to tell stories. And so I begged those teachers, bring me on, show me what I can do, and they did. It started off 1 day a week, and then it became 2 and 3 and 4 until it was every day. And when the company's Miette, their aerial mime, left, they asked me to step into the role. 8 months later, at the Virginia Highlands Festival, I made my debut as Miette. And at the close of that production, I stood at the front of the stage and I listened to thunderous applause. And I knew listening that everyone in that room could see that my body bent the wrong way. Everyone in that room could see that my face could stretch too far. And everyone in that room was celebrating every inch of it with me.